Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's live discussion on Game of Thrones Season 7. I am joined here by some very special guests, YouTubers worked with in the past. Of course, joining me here as always is Akton Tamko. Akton, thank you so much for joining me again to talk about Season 7.
Season 7. Well, actually, I'll just say, first of all, hello, everybody. It's Akton. And secondly, I was trying to convince Mark to title this video the Game of Thrones Season 7 Bitch Session, but he wouldn't go for it. So, but because I think that's kind of what it might end up being. But I guess we're going to try to say some positive things, too. But I was not pleased with the outcome of Season 7. I think the show's basically jumped the shark, but and I'm not super optimistic about Season 8, but we'll see.
Cool. And also joining us is Max from Buzztox. Been on did a couple of collaborations this year. It's all good. So it's really great to have you back here talk about Season 7 as a whole.
Oh, I'm really glad to be back. I'm glad to talk Season 7. I'm going to try and be positive, and as well as I'm not going to shy away from talking about the big load of shit that they dropped on us later in the season. And a mixed bag for me this season. To me, like, it doesn't even rank in the top 3 for me. Like, it's disappointing because we're in the last stretch and it was just such a letdown. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about it though. And there were some good things to talk about, but yeah.
Cool. And also back again from the channel, Don Willi. Great to have you back here, Don.
Thank you very much, Mark. Akton, great to see you again. Max, great to see you as well.
Summit.
Dan and Dave, fuck you.
Here we go.
Yeah, so as Akton alluded to, and I think it is a good disclaimer to have, is that I almost labeled this video the bitch fest because and I did warn Max beforehand, and he's all aboard too. We're going to try to point out some positives, but we are going to end up just complaining about how bad the season was. So I'll just warn you, if you are watching this, if that's not what you're really into, if you love the season, you don't really want to hear people complain about it, then maybe this won't be for you. Just putting that out there. So, I mean, we all love Game of Thrones, and we can all agree on it. And we're more frustrated that this didn't live up to the greatness that we felt that it should have. But let me start. I want to start with a question I'll throw to all of you. Is there anyone here who doesn't think Season 7 was the worst season of the show?
I do. So by far. So I can't say that I don't.
You know what? It is. It totally is. I just went in my mind through all the seasons and it just focused on spectacle, and even to me the spectacle was cliched and it was like misguided. Like, the plot didn't make any sense, and like, I hope I get to mention all of the plot holes that I found, because it's honestly ridiculous. Character motives don't make sense sometimes. They just service the plot. And it honestly, it did piss me off. And then it's annoying when you and the community of Game of Thrones have better theories that make more sense and play on the lore of the show, and they just play it straight down the middle. So it is the worst. And even the action scenes for me, I'm just going to quickly touch on it. They were crazy. The spectacle was awesome, but at the same time, to me, they were slow, and they could, like, Hardhome to me was way more suspenseful than the penultimate episode of this season. But that's all I got to say. It's, overall for me, the worst.
All right, Don.
All I got to say is Case Against Dan and Dave Part 2 coming soon.
All right. Cool. Okay, so I think we're pretty much all agreed on that then. So I want to get into, because last year when we did this end of the year discussion, I did all like best and worst, but I don't want to spend the whole video on that this time. But I do want to go very quickly through some of the best and worst, and we'll start with episodes. And first I'll ask the question, is there anyone here who didn't think that the best episode of the season was an episode 4, Spoils of War?
It was for me.
Yeah.
I would maybe contend that maybe I'd have to watch it again, but episode 3 I really enjoyed because I liked all the character moments. I liked how they handled the wall. Like Dragonstone. We got like Jon and Tyrion walking along like all the way up to Dragonstone. We got them meeting finally. So yeah, for me probably it's between episode 3 and episode 4.
Yeah, and I will agree with you that I did really enjoy episode 3 as well.
I would definitely have to go with episode 4. And you know what's funny? I remember when I did the after show with the Hype Watch, I gave that one an 8.75 because I was like, oh, come on, I think there's a 10 in here somewhere. They got to be able to pull out a 10, and then everything after that just dipped. And I was like, I should have given that one a 10, so at least I would have given something a 10. But no, fuck it. 8.75 is what you got. Thank you very much, Dave, you bastards.
So I did give it a 10, but I don't think it was like I really enjoyed the episode, and I think I may put it in my top 10, maybe even if not top 10, in the top 20. But I hope it gets better than this because I don't think it was like top notch, the best. It wasn't like Battle of the Bastards good. It wasn't Hard Home good, but I think it was one of the best battle sequences that we ever had in the show ever. It's just the rest of the show episode had some few minor nitpicks with him there.
Yeah, I mean, the battle was amazing. One of the best battles that they've done, I think. But then it's kind of ruined a little bit at the end with Jaime, like, sinking slowly deep into the sea. And then you just see him pop up in the next one. But, yeah, and there were definitely some other little nitpicks in there. So for an overall episode, I don't think, for me, I don't know that it would make my top 10 of the series. But it's easily the best of the season, in my opinion. Episode 3 was good too, but I think episode 4 is definitely the best.
Yeah, and what about worst episode? I think we might have different opinions on this. So, Max, what do you think was the worst episode this season?
You know what? I think I'm just gonna say episode 6 because it pissed me off. I was pissed. Like I was pissed, and I did a video and I just shit on it. Like I just went all out. And I think what I hated about it is the whole concept of the episode was based off the shittiest fan fiction I've ever heard. So I just didn't like it. Like for me, like I know you guys are pissed off about the dragon. For me, I felt like that was always coming. It seemed like a natural conclusion to the story, in my personal opinion. But I feel like the way they went there was wrong. And I feel like they had that bullet point of season 7 being like, at season 7, we need to resurrect a white dragon, and they're like, how do we get there? And then they have this flawed logic, and I have to watch this episode 6 of them capturing a stupid fucking white, and it's annoying. It's really annoying when a penultimate episode is focused on something so illogical. And don't even get me started about the ice. The ice got me so mad as a fellow Canadian, a Canuck, when I'm up north, and all it takes is like a month of cold weather and the ice freezes. I didn't buy it. It pissed me off, and I feel like they could have played it a lot better. But yeah, episode 6.
All right, Atkin.
Definitely can't argue with anyone saying episode 6, but for me, episode 6 does not happen without episode 5. Episode 6 is the natural result of episode 5, which is the piece of shit episode that set up all of that. It went from what I think was the best episode of the season, episode 4, where they were really looking good. It looks like the season was going to be really good, and then episode 5 came along and just took a giant crap on the screen. Without episode 5, there is no episode 6. So that's when that stupid fucking plan was conceived. That whole scene at Dragonstone where they were coming up with it, and Jorah suddenly wanting to go up there after finally seeing Daenerys for the first time and getting his grayscale cured, and he's finally gotten back to Daenerys, and just for no reason he's going to go up to the north. That whole scene was just a piece of shit, and I've gone on enough about Gendry. Everybody should know how I feel about how they just brought in Gendry out of nowhere. That whole thing just pissed me off. I don't want to harp on it too much because I talk about it a lot, but yeah. So for me, episode 5 is when the show pretty much jumped the shark, and then episode 6 couldn't do anything but play off of what happened in episode 5, and then episode 7 wasn't able to rescue what had happened in the previous 2 episodes. So to me, 5 was kind of the first domino where then 6 and 7 fell down too. So that's why, to me, it's 5. But I definitely don't blame anyone for saying 6 or 7.
All right, and Don.
Let's see. Worst episode for me. I'm gonna say episode 1, episode 5, episode 6, and episode 7.
Oh, that's a cop out, Don. You're supposed
You didn't
to
like the
choose
majority
just
of the
one.
season.
I mean, no.
Yeah, no ties. You gotta take one.
Nah, but listen, no, because look, since it all plays into the same damn story, yeah, it's like going on a roller coaster where it's like the you get on the roller coaster, it coasts along a little bit, it gives you a hiccup, trying to make you think it's gonna do something good, goes up for the big drop, and then the drop is like, and then you gradually go down, and it's just like, wait, hold on. I thought we were supposed to get a big drop out of this, not this little drop, and then some subsequent drops, and then it's like, oh, you thought you were going to get a loop? No loop, it just goes up a little bit and then comes down just a little bit. Like, oh, come on, man, no.
All right, and for me, of course, I haven't been shy about saying on my channel. For me, it's episode 7.
It's a fucking cartoon.
Yeah, basically.
You know what's the thing about that? You know what's the thing about that, Mark? I think that the reason why the Night King looked like a cartoon is because he's never had any dialogue. So now when he does things and you see him on top of the dragon, he's just there fucking stone-faced and shit, just like...
Well, I actually disagree with you a little bit because he never had dialogue before. In season 5, Hard Home, he didn't come off as a cartoon. He came off as total badass.
I mean, but I think like the fact that he's never had any, and I don't mean dialogue as in stuff that we can actually understand. I mean, just some sort of verbal anything. The fact that he's never had any kind of verbal anything makes him come off like the Pink Panther. Like when I see episode 7 and him coming up on Viserion, for some reason, I just think the Pink Panther, and I just hear
Well, it definitely makes me think of a cartoon character, I will say.
Yeah. Well, there's a right way and a wrong way to have a character who doesn't speak. And I feel like in Hard Home, they were doing it the right way. Like his non-speaking was very, very powerful. And now in season 7, yeah, he is the Pink Panther. He is a cartoon. And they're doing it the wrong way, which it didn't necessarily have to. Like they could have still had a non-verbal character and still make it be a very powerful thing. But instead, it just comes off looking cartoonish.
Absolutely. And the thing with me with episode 7, a lot of people saying, well, it's actually better than the 2 previous. And I was actually thinking that when I was first watching it, with all the great dialogue scene, with the great acting and the King's Landing stuff. But the thing is, even with that stuff, even though I still love the Jaime and Cersei scene, even with that stuff, like when you look at the dialogue, it kind of falls apart, and there was moments of too obvious fan service in there. And plus, the whole thing to me, I can't get over the fact that they just should have killed Cersei. Like, the whole plan to, like, capture White and make peace with her. And, of course, she's not going to make peace. Of course she's going to deceive them. They're idiots for thinking that she'd ever agree to this plan in the first place. So that makes me, I can't enjoy those scenes now because of that. And then, of course, you got the Jon and Daenerys, like, coming together, which was so telegraphed. It was so contrived. Wasn't built up to at all. And, of course, the huge, like, to me, the reason why episode 7 is easily the worst is because, to me, the last 10 minutes of that episode ruined the entire show. Like, frankly, ruined it. I don't think there's any coming back for season 8 because of those last 10 minutes. I think this show was still salvageable up until that point. But I know that's harsh, but
I only have one real concern for season 8, and that has to do with Cersei still being around. Because it makes me think, we watched this whole show and it was been leading up to the White Walkers and the Night King. but now Cersei's still around. So now it's making me think like they better not make Cersei the main villain of this whole show. Like I hope they give the Night King his time of due. Like they don't focus on Cersei too much. Like I wish we almost moved on from that plot point. And it makes me think of George R. R. Martin, like Dave and Dan. Like I'm sure they have a bullet list, hopefully, of points that they need to hit for the series. They know how the show's going to end. Are the characters supposed to meet up in King's Landing, or did they just do that for fanfic? Because I almost would have preferred that not to happen. But
absolutely, yeah. Okay, so just real quick, any thoughts on best and worst moments of the season? I'll start while you guys are thinking about that. For me, like worst, easily Night King burning down the wall with the white dragon. It's the no contest. Best, I would have to pick like maybe during one of the moments during the battle with I think no, for me specific moment would be when Tyrion is like looking at Jaime and Jaime's charging at Daenerys. She's like, "You fucking idiot!" To me, I love that. That was amazing. So I would say that was the best moment of the season.
You know what? Best moment of the season for me, and I think it would have worked even better had they not given the reveal of it a couple of seasons ago, is Elena revealing to Jaime that she was responsible for Joffrey's death. Awesome, 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 because the look on his face was kind of like, I'll let you die your own way. Like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. So that's worst moment of the season. Oh man, Winterfell. Worst moment of the season. Anything that happened at Winterfell is the worst moment of the season.
Yeah, for me, best moments, like definitely the battle with the Tyrion moment that you're talking about, Mark. I love that moment. Love Jon and Dany meeting. I liked what did I like? Like there's a lot that I like, but I can't stop thinking about the stuff I didn't like. And that's, for one, that's the stupid ice breaking and the Whites not attacking. There was no development on the Night King that I think there should have been, and the White Walkers, I think they were just I don't know. We'll talk about it later, but the stuff there, it confuses me.
But Max, if you had to pick one worst moment, would it be the ice breaking?
Fucking the ice breaking, Benjen. Fucking Benjen.
Oh,
why Benjen? I just don't get it. Like, bring in Rhaegal. Give Jon a sweet moment, finally able to ride a dragon. Why does Benjen have to come save him?
Yeah, Benjen ex machina.
Yeah, that was one of my gripes. And yeah, Winterfell, I hardly understood it. Sometimes I thought it just made certain decisions for the plot twist rather than making sense. But yeah, that's my opinion.
So for me, my favorite moment, I could easily go. I think I would go with the battle scenes too. But to since everybody else said it, to go outside that, I'll go and say Arya meeting Nymeria for me was very touching. I really that was back when I thought the season was still going to be good, and I thought that was a very touching scene. So I could say that. And worst could be I could have a 20-way tie. There was a lot of ones that I could say, but I'll pick one and I'll stick with Arya, and I'll say when she threatened to wear Sansa's face. That was just out of nowhere to me. I was just like, really, your sister? I mean, all for writing a freaking letter when she was, when she was a kid. I don't know. Like, that was a little extreme to me. It took me out of the story. It took me out of that character. And then the follow-up to that was even worse, that they just pretended like that never happened. Oh, you were threatening to prance around the castle wearing my face and being me. Oh, no big deal. Like it never happened. But that moment I'll say is one of the worst. But you're making me pick one, so I'll just go with that one.
And then Brad finally speaks up.
Off screen.
Off screen.
Off screen. They cut that part, and then they meant like, oh my god, I don't know. I thought that was plot convenience.
All right, cool. So let's move on to the final best worst thing I want to do, and that's best and worst characters, or your favorite and least favorite characters of the season. So I'll go first. I think the best character of the season was Euron, actually, because I actually really like the stuff they did with Euron. I like his cheekiness over the finger in the bum and like the actual berserk way he was at the battle. And because he wasn't in the last 3 episodes all that much, he didn't have time to be a total fuck up like most of the other characters did. And worst character is Tyrion. He's an idiot!
I was gonna say him!
He is such a moron. He just had the dumbest plans. He fell right into his sister's trap, and it's his fault that the freaking wall is coming down. So, yes. Max.
Yeah, I agree with Tyrion. And I was thinking about that. And yeah, Tyrion. And the reason that is like I love Tyrion. Like, he's one of my favorite characters, and I feel like he was misused. Like, they give Tyrion the idea to capture White. Like, really? And totally he forgets the logic of his sister and the kind of person she is. Like, it just, yeah, it's like the reason why I think Tyrion was so used is because they used him to write their shitty plot. They used him to give the shitty plans. They used him to give, so I wish they did Tyrion better, and I wish we saw some of that political intrigue. But best, it's like, you guys are going to laugh, but like, Jon Snow's always been my favorite character, and I did love watching him in this show. I really liked watching him. I really liked his arc. Bending the knee, I'm kind of meh about. I can come around. I'm in the middle. I'm not sure. But yeah, I did like his arc this season. The whole reveal at the end about him being Targaryen, we can get into it later, but I don't know what the point of it was. Like, what did it tell us? That he's the heir to the Iron Throne? We already knew that Rhaegar was the dad. So I think they could have went a step further with that. They could have shown us more. And I think the reveal was misguided, but I like Jon this season. And it's every season. Jon's always my favorite character, so.
All right, Atkin.
Oh, so both of these are hard because I think almost anybody could be my worst character, and picking a favorite character this season is difficult. This season, I think for favorite character, I'll just go ahead and go with Jaime, because I liked he would have the one arc that made sense, that was really built up to well, that was really developed well, which is an arc that I've been waiting to happen for a couple seasons now, where he starts to get doubts about Cersei, and then finally he turns against her in the end. So despite the whole fiasco with the water thing and the drowning thing, I'll say him. But again, I don't really think there was a great character this season, so he's like kind of the best of the worst. I mean, I don't. And as far as worst character, I don't mean to just echo you guys, but Tyrion kind of sucked this season. I don't know. Yeah, he was pretty bad. And oh, by the way, the reason why I wouldn't go with Euron, Mark, is just because he disappeared for 3 episodes, so I lost interest in him. But worst character, yeah, it's got to be Tyrion. I mean, he was just he came up with bad plan after bad plan, yeah, I don't know. He really just pissed me off this season. And what really pissed me off in the last episode is, why did he think that he could go down and talk to Cersei and convince her in the first place? Why did he even bother? Like, does he not know? Does he not know his sister? Like, why did he ever think that he would convince her? And then when she like made the fakest lie I've ever seen. Like, it was the fakest lie in the entire world. Like, I just was laughing out loud that as those words even came out of her mouth. Oh, I'm going to send all my troops up north. Like, it was so fake. Like, how does Tyrion buy this? I don't understand.
And that scene to me, I don't get how he believed that he got Cersei from point A to point B, and I didn't believe that he could have gotten her from point A to point B. Like, she literally left the discussion table. Tyrion went over and had a drink with her. You're pregnant. And now she's all of a sudden agreeing to send troops north. Like, that was shallow to me. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. No, I do think that Jaime was a good pick. Now that you think of it, I kind of agree with you there. But the thing with Euron, I think him not being in the last 3 episodes is a plus, because those 3 episodes sucked and he managed to stay out of most of it. But anyway, Don.
Ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to grow up and marry the most beautiful woman in the world. So here I am with 1,000 ships and 2 good hands. Yo, listen, you're on. You know what's funny? So, like, in the live stream I just did, I was talking about Theon, but I talked about who Euron is. Euron is like the high school, the college football jock. That's who he was this season. That was his character, and it got played to perfection. You know, I wasn't sure what they were gonna do with him after the debacle from last season. I was pleasantly surprised. You know, yes, he looked weird with all that guy liner on, and you know, his kind of leather village people kind of get up. But I bought it for him. He was a badass pirate, and I loved Euron. Worst character. Worst character was Winterfell. Worst character was anyone who even remotely passed by Winterfell. If you were north of the neck, you were the worst character for this season. Okay, no. If I gotta pick one, I gotta go with Miss. I'll take your face and prance around the castle with it, Arya. Yeah, I was like, what? You were Tywin Lannister's cupbearer. You had the chance to kill Tywin Lannister and end the war, and even Gendry and Hot Pie brought that up to you. And yet here you are berating Sansa about you betrayed our father and got him killed. And she's like, really? You know what? Shut the fuck up forever, Arya.
All right, cool. Oh, and Max, I wanted to respond real quick when you asked, like, what was even the point of the reveal that Jon was still a Targaryen. Hold on, I just want to bring up the point here.
Mm-hmm.
What is the point?
I love it. That's so funny. That is so funny.
Nothing against Lord of the Rings, but Game of Thrones has never been Lord of the Rings. Game of Thrones has never been a fairy tale, and it just so pisses me off how
John's Aragorn.
But anyway,
I think calling it Lord of the Rings is giving it too much credit, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, true. That's true. But I mean, they're basically doing the same arc, and it just doesn't fit in Game of Thrones.
Well, see, it's a classic old arc that's been redone a bazillion times for, I don't know, probably 1,000 years, literally. And Lord of the Rings did it well. It can be done well, but at Game of Thrones, it makes no sense. It's at a place it doesn't belong. It is taking a giant crap on George R. R. Martin's really complex, intricate work.
Yeah, the reveal didn't have to be split into 2 seasons. I don't know why they did that. Like, everyone knew that he was Rhaegar, so why wait for another season to almost be like, pretend like nobody knew? It's Rhaegar, everybody, and he's legitimate. They got married, and it's like, that's not the focus. Like, we're focusing on the Night King and the Prince that was promised and Azor Ahai and all this stuff, and like, I feel like they could have talked about something else. And Bran, don't even get me started about Bran.
Oh, well, you know what? I was just gonna say,
just like Sam.
I see everything that's ever happened. I see everything happening now. What are you doing here? What?
Cringiest moment ever. The cringiest moment for me ever was Sam walked in. He's like, "Hello," and then Bran is like, "Jon Snow's a sand. He's a sand," and that's it. Like, how does he not know? Like, you think if a guy is following Jon and Lyanna and Jon's past, he would see everything. Why would he magically skip over the wedding part, but he got to see the birth? Like, what kind of a green seer is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's so dumb. And then Sam reminds him, oh, actually, my girlfriend Gilly told me about this bullshit, but it's probably a bunch of bullshit. And then all of a sudden, he's there. Thank you, Sam. Like, it was just...
he wasn't even paying attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, and actually you make good points. I could even go with Bran for worst character. He did nothing. Yeah. He's like Mr. I see everything. He's the most useless character. Like, he didn't even tell about
Bran is big too, because this season could have been saved by Bran. That's the saddest part of it, is that he was so mishandled. The whole season could have been saved by, like, if his character was used appropriately, and it wasn't.
Oh, wait, hold on. And let's think about this though, right? So Bran gets the dagger from Littlefinger and then asks Littlefinger, "Do you know who this dagger belonged to?" Littlefinger says, "No, that question started the War of the Five Kings." And then later on, it's "Chaos is a ladder." Mr. I see everything. Ask the guy whose dagger it was. Do you know who this belonged to?
Well, that I forgive. That I took as Bran was asking a question he knew the answer to. He was just trying to get it from Littlefinger.
Here's the thing, right? Because at first I was thinking maybe there was going to be some big reveal about the dagger belonging to like Aegon Targaryen, the real hold on. The real Aegon Targaryen, right? Or someone else of prominence. But no, it's still Littlefinger's dagger that he said he lost to Tyrion. And I'm just like, all right, that's it. That's it. Yeah, Dan and Dave. There you go.
Yeah, that's somebody in the chat totally jogged my memory. Like, we knew that Jon was a sand to begin with. That was the whole thing. That's what pisses me off the most. Like, fuck. Yeah, that's it. That's my last point.
Yeah, it's no secret he was born in Dorne, but yeah. And I think technically that still wouldn't make him a sand. He's still a snow or like a river.
Yeah, because he was raised in the North by Ned Stark. He's still a snow.
Yeah. He's a sand. No fucking shit. He was born in Dorne.
That was
all right. Okay. So let's move on. Let's get into some more specific storylines, and I'm going to start with the big one, Jon Snow and Daenerys. Basically, everything that these two characters have gotten up to. Although I don't want to get too much into the Cersei stuff or the Jaime stuff because we'll save that for another thing. But with Jon Snow and Daenerys, and I guess we'll start with their coming together in the romance. Did this work for anyone? Did anyone have any positive things to say about this?
They both have hot bods. You know.
Look, the romance I can understand, I guess.
Okay.
The one thing that I didn't like, I love them playing off each other and how it's like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. I always talked about this. I loved how Daenerys was the one she's the conqueror. Everybody looks up to her. Everybody looks at her for guidance and advice. And then she meets this person, Jon Snow, and he's the one person that she can't out alpha. She's the one person that she can't get to kneel. She's the one, like, Jon goes head to head with her. And I think that's the one character that does. And I love seeing that conflict. And I loved how Jon, his past kind of reflects how he would never bend the knee. But then they threw that shit out of the window in episode 6. So, I did like, I guess I can accept the love. The love, sure, it seems natural. They're both good looking people and they both have come through similar story arcs. But yeah, just the bending the knee thing bugged me. I wish that there were more equals, and I feel like Jon, I don't know. I just feel like he wouldn't have, and I think a marriage would have been more likely. But I think no matter what, one of them's going to die in the end anyway. So.
Well, I just want to touch on that because I actually had kind of like the opposite reaction to it because I thought it made perfect sense for Jon to bend the knee because he's more worried about fighting the White Walkers than he is about being king. And I think the only reason he didn't bend the knee in the first place is because he wasn't sure that bending the knee would actually help fight the White Walkers. He wasn't sure he could trust Daenerys, which is actually fair because it wouldn't have, because she had no investment in the White Walkers. But once she did come and save them with the dragons and she was fully invested, then I think there was no reason for him not to bend the knee at that point. For me, the issue lied a bit more with how and I know a lot of people disagree with me on this one, but how just unreceptive to Jon Daenerys was like, bend the knee, and she was being, to me, she was being totally she didn't treat any of her other potential allies that way. She fucking treated Cersei better than the way she treated Jon. And it just seemed like, looking back on it, that it was contrived writing just so they could have, here's these two characters. They hate each other, but now they're going to love each other. And it seemed like that was the only reason they did that, and it didn't feel realistic or true to the characters.
Yes, it absolutely felt like when Johnny met Mad Queen. And I know you hated the whole thing of people saying Mad Queen this season, but damn it, she just really looks like she had way too much anger in her eyes at certain points, and too much satisfaction at wanting to burn people. But yeah, she was, way too much of a dick to Jon when he first shows up. And then it's like, even with her apology, when she apologized for what her father did, it was still like, okay, look, I'm apologizing. I'm sorry, shouldn't have done that, but god damn it, all right, I'm here, bend the fucking knee, okay? Okay, Northern Savage. like really? Come on now.
See, I'm actually kind of opposite on it. Sorry, go ahead, Akton.
Well, I haven't gotten to say what I think about Jon and Daenerys' romance yet, and haven't gotten my turn.
Go right ahead.
So I'm going to jump in. So my hand is Dan and Dave. The hammer is that plot, and this is what was happening to me, like beating over the head with a hammer. Jon and Daenerys love each other. Like, it was just too much. And I felt like it was a lot of telling and not showing. Like, we saw more characters saying, "Oh, I saw the way you were looking at Daenerys," or, "Oh, Daenerys, did you see the way Jon was looking?" Then we actually saw Jon looking that way. It was just too much telling and not showing, too contrived, and just too beating me over the head with a hammer. Like, okay, I get it. They're falling in love. It just it took me away from the story and made me not invested in it because it was just so forced. And so contrived, and just way, way too much, just beating me over the head with it. But I do agree with Mark on the bending the knee thing. That part of it made sense to me because of what you said, Mark, that Jon wanted to wait until he knew for sure that Daenerys would be on his side before he would bend the knee. And once he knew that bending the knee to her would be to his advantage in the war against the White Walkers, that did make sense. So I'll agree to that part. But as far as the whole romance was just too contrived for me.
Really quick, and I do get you, Akton and Mark, your point of view, because like, she did choose to leave Dragonstone against Tyrion's counsel to save them, even though I think they could have done that better. The fact that she went all the way from Dragonstone to over the wall at Eastwatch, I feel like they could have handled that way better because of a fucking raven in a marathon. But Daenerys and Jon in the initial scene when her being angry with Jon, to me, I thought that was totally necessary, because as soon as like Jon walked in, like, she's everywhere she goes, people bend the knee to her. And Jon literally walked in and she's like, "Oh, you've come to swear fealty?" He's like, "No." And then I think that initially sparks her reaction of her being pissed off and then on the offensive. But that's the way I read it. I thought it made sense to me.
All right, fair enough.
If I may, just one slight retort real quick.
Yeah.
Look, the only reason why I had a problem with Daenerys and her whole mantra of, bend the knee just because when it came to Jon is because, look, if people are going around calling themselves king and there are other people following them or queen, then obviously, like, to just say, okay, yeah, come and bend the knee, and if you won't do this, I'm going to get pissed off, to me seems a little childish, because the other people who follow them, their bannermen, are saying, okay, yeah, cool, you can be king or queen. So obviously the people in the regions where they're from don't take issue with this. So maybe a little negotiating might be in order, instead of just saying, "Oh, you came all this way and you won't bend the knee. You're an asshole. I hate you forever." I'm just saying.
Cool. Yeah, no, fair enough. Cool. So I want to switch focus slightly to a bit more on Daenerys, and I think she had a pretty interesting arc this season. It was cool seeing her arrive at Dragonstone. But the thing with me is, like, we've been waiting like 6 seasons. She's been off in Essos just doing her own thing, and then all of a sudden she's back in Westeros. And to me, like, this happened, it was rushed through way too fast. Like, there was a lot of setup, and I think they needed to take their time in order to pay off slowly. I didn't like the fact that like Cersei, we start the season, Cersei's already aware of her, and they're already, it's like almost like we're starting at the midpoint of the season, and then all of a sudden we don't get much of her actually conquering Westeros. This is what got me. By the end of the season, the final episode, they're like, oh, Cersei's like, oh, we need to take our lands back from Daenerys. Like, she took them from you? When did this happen? Which exactly lands does she have? What's going on? So to me, like, they just needed to take more time to show her conquest of Westeros. It's like the first 4 episodes were all about her conquest, and then after that is like completely forgotten.
Yeah, and I totally, completely agree with that. And I also would say that episode 6 for Daenerys already to be up north of the Wall after just arriving in Westeros for the very first time ever in episode 1. Just 5 episodes later, she's already made it north of the Wall and is fighting the White Walkers. That's way, 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 way too fast. Like, I mean, I had always said that this should be a 10-episode season, and episode 9 is when that episode should have taken place. But even episode 9 seems a little too soon to me. Really, season 8 is, she shouldn't be anywhere near north of the Wall yet. They just rushed right through the storyline, just plowed through it as quickly as they can, and a lot of things suffered because of that. They're like good storytelling. It was just way, way, way too fast.
Cool.
I think the fastness, I was fine with the fastness as long as the characters stay within the rules of what they made for the season. Like, in every season, they have this kind of, some characters deviate out of the rules, but usually there's a set of rules where you can suspend disbelief enough to say that, okay, so during this time, that much time has passed and they traveled. So if Jon travels from Dragonstone to Eastwatch, if Daenerys was there with him, I would be okay with that, because I can suspend my disbelief and say that, okay, a lot of time has passed, but don't pull me out of it when they're abandoned on an ice rock and she flies all the way there to save them while they're waiting there. That, to me, broke the suspension of disbelief, because you want me to believe that she flew all across the fucking continent to save a bunch of people standing on a rock. So if she went there with them, I would have been fine with it. If they changed the reason they were going there, I would have been fine with it. So I think the 7 episodes would have been great if they stuck true to the rules that they established, and if they wrote a better last 3 episodes.
Well, yeah, and also, not only did she get there too fast, but Jon's plan was really stupid. Oh, instead of running towards Eastwatch, let's run in the opposite direction and just hope there happens to be this block of ice that we can stand on for 2 days while we wait for Daenerys to come. Like, if they didn't happen to fall on that block of ice, like, they would be corpses by the time Daenerys got there. Like, it was a stupid plan. Like, it just happened to get lucky that there just happened to be this block of ice that they could stand on, because there's no way Daenerys should have ever been able to get there before they were just destroyed by the White Walkers. So they should have been running toward Eastwatch. Like, I don't know what they were even doing, but
and they should have had a more significant meaning behind it, because the whole point of that mission was to unite everyone together, and it clearly didn't do it. And you see like the Lord of Light. The Lord of Light has answered prayers. It's done a lot of shit in the show. But yet the Lord of Light gives the Hound the vision to go there and see the arrowhead, which tells me that it's very significant to the plot. So why is capturing a white significant to the plot? Like, I wish that they played a different side to it. Like, they went north of the Wall because Bran told them, hey guys, I need you to go here for this reason. But then we discover that the Night King Kagreetsi and he's fucking up with Bran. Or something, like, just something that kind of can go into the lore deeper, or explaining that the Night King, instead of using ice as the crutch of leaving them on that rock, just have the white stop. And then the audience is like, holy shit, why did everyone stop? And then it raises the suspense. Why are they just standing around? And then you discover that he's waiting for the dragons to arrive, rather than it just relying on this weak plot of ice being broken.
Yeah, and Go ahead.
Pardon me real quick, and just going back to the whole Night King not having any kind of speaking role, because if they had showed, like, you know, what you just said, Max, and then the Night King kind of, you know, either speaks or does some sort of hand gesture to let you know, like, oh, this was a trap, it would have made a lot more sense. You know, like, yeah, right now people speculate that the Night King is a green seer because he seems to be having these little back and forth battles with Bran, but we shouldn't have to speculate as to whether or not Daenerys flying to rescue these guys was a trap set up by the Night King.
I agree. We shouldn't have to speculate. I mean,
Yes.
it should be. And I think, Mark, you seem to err on the side of it wasn't in the show, so it didn't happen. Like, they didn't say it. So, which they should have made that clear if that was their intent. And if it wasn't their intent, then it's stupid. So,
Yeah.
And quite frankly, like, after the last 3 episodes, I have no faith in Dan and Dave to actually say it was a green seer. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just a thing, and they fucked up, and it's just contrived. You know, maybe in retrospect, if they say next season he's a green seer, fine, but it still doesn't excuse how poorly it was executed this season. But I did want to touch a bit back on Daenerys and her, like, the thing, and this is what I'll say, Max, is that why we need at least one more episode between, like, episode 5 should have been at least 2 episodes before we got episode 6. We got there way too soon, is because we needed time to adjust from this big, huge battle of Daenerys fighting the Jaime and the Lannisters, and to switch focus to the White Walkers. To me, that happened way too fast. Like, it needed to be more natural. And particularly Daenerys' decision to go all of a sudden, I don't care about the White Walkers. I want to take Cersei. All of a sudden, okay, let me put all of my battle plans on hold so I can just sit on my ass while you go off and do the stupid plan on the hopes that we make a truce.
Yeah.
To me, that was just unacceptable.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. Like, the reason why, like, 7 episodes to me, if they really wanted to dedicate to 7 episodes, I feel like they could have done a better job. But obviously, this season called for more episodes. Like, the fact how we get Jon petting a dragon and it's interrupted by Jorah arriving, like, I feel like every scene needs more room to breathe. Like, we got a 1-minute scene with Tyrion and Jaime when he just hopped on a boat and went from Dragonstone to King's Landing. Like, we needed these character moments to breathe, and a lot of characters were coming together and reuniting, and I feel like that it needed some room to breathe, and it just didn't have it. They're just always rushing to the next point. Jon's petting a dragon. Oh, here's Jorah. Like, it's like it was just so fast paced. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah, especially the here's Jorah thing. That really pissed me off. He's like, oh, hello, Khaleesi. Oh, no, let me go off on this mission that you don't really care all that much about after spending years trying to get back to you.
They're saving characters more than they're killing them. Like, it's like the reverse Game of Thrones. Like, I said this earlier on. Like, if you give Jorah grayscale, then kill him. Like, why cure him? Like, you're walking backwards. You established that in the plot. No need to step backwards. Like, maybe keep Jorah with grayscale and cover him up and say that he'll go on this mission with Jon. Like, and he'll die there. Like, I don't know why they're saving these characters, because it's going to be a shit show next season because they're going to be killing off everybody.
Every character has plot armor now. Well, even Beric Dondarrion has plot armor.
Yeah.
So it's a little
Beric and
ridiculous.
Tormund.
Yeah, I mean, we last saw them on top of the wall as the wall. I mean, they were on the very, very top. We saw how high the wall was. They were the very, very top. We saw the whole wall come down, and then all these White Walkers and Whites walk over where the wall used to be, and like somehow they're still going to be alive. I guarantee they'll still be alive, even though that makes no sense. They should be dead by 100 times.
Yeah, I just didn't feel the danger that you should feel. And back onto Daenerys, I felt that once, and that was in the battle when Jaime was charging at her. And I feel like they did make that clear throughout the season with Daenerys, as Tyrion always said, like, hey, an arrow can puncture your heart. Like, you're not immortal. And, I wish we got more moments like that where we're actually on edge. Not a moment where they grab Jon and throw him in ice water because he's a Targaryen. His fiery blood will keep him warm.
God damn it.
Like you don't need in order to have stakes, you don't need to go that crazy. Like I wish it was just more intense, and I felt like I was on the edge of my seat. Because I honestly can say this whole season, I wasn't on the edge of my seat like I was in other seasons. In the Dragon Pit, I was on the edge of my seat. In Hardhome, I was on the edge of my seat. I'm not getting that this season.
Right. Anyway, Don, I know you've been wanting to say something for a while, so go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as far as the rush to the end. I mean, I know there are going to be people who are going to watch and say, "Oh, but how could they have done better?" and this, that, and third, and you guys are just nitpicking. Like, look, if you watch what we are saying, if you take into perspective what everyone on this panel is saying, you'll see. First off, when Matt comes back up, I want you to look at the map that he has on his wall of Westeros, or Google the damn map for yourself. Right, and you can see the distance from Dragonstone to the wall.
Dragonstone? I can't even reach that far.
Right.
All the way up there.
So here is the thing. For those who say, "Oh, no, it shouldn't be a problem that Daenerys was able to save these guys." Westeros is not the size of England. Westeros is the size of South America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So next time you look at your map, look at England, look at South America, see the difference in scale, and notice that first off, a raven is not going to be able to fly from
Raven.
No, you got the raven first from the wall. The raven is not going to be able to fly from seeing that. I don't know the whole geography of South America right now, so I'm just going to use Westeros. It's not going to be able to fly from Eastwatch to Dragonstone in less than a day, and Daenerys is not going to be able to fly from Dragonstone to beyond the wall, wherever these guys were. And that's another thing with the geography. Oh, these guys screwed the geography so badly on the whole thing beyond the wall, because where they went to was a mountainous region with like no vegetation, no trees around. If you look directly beyond the wall, it is the haunted forest. Way to the far west of the haunted forest is where you see mountains and snow-covered hills. Even where Hardhome is, you don't see any mountains. You don't see any mountains. There's no mountains close to the wall on the eastern shore whatsoever. So that means Gendry would have had to run the 300-mile length of the wall, plus however many miles away from that they were, in order to get to Eastwatch to deliver that raven, which is probably why he collapsed before he got there. It's like, if I run another step, all the bones in my goddamn body are going to break. But
he's so fast.
Yeah, he definitely...
He's the fastest one there.
I don't know how that happens, but my man here, you know this guy well, Lord Baelish. He's the guy who's getting everybody around after they killed him off in such a nonsensical manner, and we'll probably get to that one. But we'll
get to that. Yeah, well, the one thing I did actually want to bring up is I've been watching a lot of these corporate reviews or whatever with these like certified critics who went to like university, and they did the studying, and they're official critics, and they are saying what they're saying about the complaints, about the time, distance, and all the other logical points, all the logical flaws, all the complaints. What they're saying is, hey guys, it's a fantasy. So why are you complaining about there's dragons and there's fire bringing things? So why are you complaining about how long does it take? And I actually heard this one guy say, where he's like, oh, you're complaining about how fast the dragon goes? Well, how dragon goes as fast as a unicorn. Dragon goes as fast as a leprechaun. And I'm just thinking, give back your degree. Give these fucking trained, like, educated critics should not be talking about fantasy if they cannot understand the very basic tenet of fantasy, and that is you set up rules and you stick to the rules. You can't just have anything happen for the fuck of it, damn logic, just because, oh, it's a fantasy. You can't have Aragorn shooting laser beams out of his eyes for no reason. You need to stick to the rules, and if you don't stick to the rules, then it's bad writing.
Agreed.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. And I've taken writing courses on how to write magical realism or magic or fantasy, and the very, very basic concept is making rules and sticking to them. You can do whatever you want within those rules as long as you establish rules and you stick with them. So saying it's fantasy and you can have unicorns going as fast as dragons can go as fast as the wind, you can do whatever you want, it doesn't matter. That's just shows a complete lack of understanding of the whole genre of fantasy, and they shouldn't even be watching the show, let alone critiquing it, if they can't even understand the very basic concept of fantasy.
Absolutely. All right, we kind of went on tangents here and got sidetracked, but that's all good. All good discussion. But let's move on to Jon Snow now. And I actually want to start with the start of the season, actually, because if you think back to the start of the season, he had 2 episodes in Winterfell with Sansa and Sansa. They were kind of just bickering with each other, and he did the same thing twice in a row, where he'd come up with like this huge plan that he probably should have consulted with her beforehand, but just laid it on her while in front of everyone else, and then she, being equally dumbass, just challenges his authority, which is like, hanging by a thread as it is. But I gotta say, I kind of like these things. I mean, it does kind of make them come off as idiots, but I think it does prove the point that they're still learning to work together. So for the most part, I was kind of okay with this stuff. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on it.
I was okay with it too, but again, I would just keep going back to the season should have been longer. I felt like Jon went to Daenerys too quickly. It just seemed sudden. So I would have liked to personally. I mean, I might be the only one who thinks this, but I would have liked to see Jon stay at Winterfell a little bit longer if we're talking about a 10-episode season, and have more of that. Because it actually was kind of interesting to me, the Jon and Sansa still trying to figure things out, and then you just poof, Jon's gone, and that whole storyline is just done and replaced by this stupid Arya storyline instead. So it was just very abrupt to me. So I did like the scenes. I just thought that the way they just suddenly ended them was weird, but that's just me.
I personally loved it. I liked it because it stayed true. It was the best politics that I think we got in this season. I loved it, and the characters stuck true to who they were in every scene. Jon forgiving Karstark and Umber children, to me, makes a lot of sense. And Sansa being kind of against that because the political ramifications also make sense. And then there's the Night King and Cersei. Like, Sansa's worried for Cersei, and she doesn't think that Jon is doing the right thing. They still have a wall between them and the Night King. And I think that's going to be a plot point that plays in the next season. Jon's going to be looking north, but I think Sansa's going to be the only one really looking south and seeing what Cersei's doing and seeing all that buildup. So I loved all the political shite going on in the north. And I love seeing Jon, well, after Jon left with Littlefinger went to shit. But I loved it when we got to see Jon and Sansa play off each other, because I think they did it really well. I really, really liked it. And it just shows how far the characters have kind of grown apart because of their experiences and just who they are in general.
Any thoughts on this, Don?
Okay, so look, you know what? should have been 10 episodes. We do recognize this. I think we all can recognize this. I had no problem with John leaving when he did. I think if you made it a 10 episode season, it might have helped to set up the Jon and Daenerys thing a little bit better, because if you look at Daenerys and Khal Drogo, that was only one season, but we bought it. We bought it because they paced everything out the way it should have gone, and so it made things seem natural. You knew that, this was months that they had spent together, and it was the back and forth dynamic that helped to cement things. Now, as far as the whole stuff with him at Winterfell, when it came to the issue of Carhold and also the Last Hearth, anybody notice that the Dreadfort was just conspicuously missing out of that whole thing?
Yes.
Yes.
I wanted to see House Manderley too.
But no, my whole thing is Sansa was married to Ramsay Bolton. It was a legit ceremony, even though it wasn't really legit. Point is, why is no one mentioning, hey, we also have the damn Dreadfort that could be given away? And the other thing that was kind of stupid too was when she was like, oh well, yeah, give the castles to the men who fought for you. Who the hell fought for the damn Starks other than the Wild Ones? We had Kerwin didn't show up, because remember, at the end of last season, freaking the little bear was calling all of them out. Lord Glover, you didn't answer the call. Kerwin, you didn't answer the call. Manderley, you did. She was mad. She was just calling everybody out like it was Saturday night main event. You didn't answer the call, brother. You didn't answer the call. I came down in the ring. I answered the damn call. Yeah, so who's you supposed to get those 3 castles to then?
Yeah, well, it was the Mormonts for one. She could, I guess, give it one of the Mormonts. But I think they mentioned there were some minor, tiny little houses that were.
I think the Hornwoods or the Masons or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they mentioned some minor. So but there weren't very many of them. Yeah, it is true.
And that just to me roots in the main complaint. In my predictions video, I mentioned the Dreadfort. I feel like they didn't use these certain pieces. I feel like it could have been used with Sansa and Littlefinger in some way. Instead of literally the story was Littlefinger running around starting gossip between the sisters. That's literally what it was. He was prancing around. Here's a letter and here's some information. I wanted him to play a bigger game. Threaten to pull the veil. Maybe Cersei. To me, Lady Olenna telling Jaime that she killed Joffrey is a perfect time to tell her that she did it with Littlefinger. And then that would open huge ramifications with Cersei and Littlefinger. And I just feel like it would open the plot and let it breathe more.
Yeah, that might have been good. But at the time, I sort of noted that she probably didn't mention Littlefinger because she wanted to take all the credit. She didn't want Cersei being mad at anyone else. She wanted, which I can understand that. But I do see what you're saying.
I was wondering about the logistics too, because does he still own Harrenhal, or did he? Because he's still a lord. So my whole thing was that Cersei would find out, she would eliminate him from all titles, and then Arya would use that as a bargaining chip, saying, "Hey, I'll give you the Dreadfort and make you a lord if you do as I say." And
he was still Lord Protector of the Vale, though.
Oh, okay. By Robin,
yeah, even without Harrenhal, he was
because he married Lysa.
Yeah. Yeah, so he was named Lord Protector of the Vale, so he still was technically in charge of the Vale.
Yeah, but to me, what was missing from this season is Edmure. I heard that Edmure Tully would be appearing this season, and he didn't. And I wanted to know what the hell he was up to. What happened after all the Freys got killed? Did they take back River Run? Did they take back the Riverlands? Even if he didn't appear, even if you just had a line of freaking dialogue saying, "Oh, the Tullys took back River Run," that's all you need to do. You need something that establishes the world.
And this is really the lack of detail. Well, the show has always had to an extent. Like after the Baratheons were all gone, then you never hear a thing about the Stormlands ever again. But now, as season 7, it seems to be way worse. It's like once the Dornish characters are gone, what happened to Dorne? Dorne doesn't exist anymore. Poof, it's out of existence. What happened to the Dreadfort? It's not a part of the story anymore. Poof, it doesn't exist. Like if it is not relevant to the story, it's just completely non-existent, and it makes the world feel very shallow and unreal. Like that, whenever something is off screen, whenever it's not relevant to exactly what is happening right now, it seems to be non-existent. Theon and Euron seemed non-existent for a couple episodes. Like what the hell happened to them? Like Theon was trying to get Daenerys to go and rescue Yara, and then that plot just poof, it was gone. And he wasn't in the throne or the painted table room when they were discussing going up to that stupid plan to do the whites. He just poof vanished. So I just saw a lot of that in season 7. If it's not relevant to what's going on right now, Dreadfort, poof, it doesn't exist. Dorne doesn't exist. Edmure Tully doesn't exist. Riverlands doesn't exist. Like it just they just don't even mention it, and just makes it not feel like it's not a good world building. It doesn't feel the world doesn't feel real.
Yeah, and I feel like they went in the other direction in certain situations too. I'll be really quick. Just with like plot developments that you can see earlier in the seasons, there's a lot of examples, but I'll just use Bran being marked. Like that's a potential plot nugget that could be pushed in this season. But and there's a ton of things like that I've picked up throughout all the seasons that they could have introduced in this season and built upon it, but they just eliminated and scrapped it and pushed it forward. Like the only thing that I think they really played on was Theon having no penis and becoming the fucking leader because they were punching him in the dick and it wasn't affecting him. I feel like that was the one thing that they brought in from the past seasons. That pissed me off. Don't even get me started on that. That made me mad.
But you're forgetting they did take the time to go back and revisit what happened to that farmer and his little daughter that the Hound and Arya visited in season 4, because we really needed to follow up on that. Everyone, what happened to those farmers?
That's what I've been wondering for 3 seasons. I was really coming into this season. Yeah. This show's over, but I really need to know what happened to that farmer and his daughter. Yeah, the ones that I have no memory of whatsoever. Yeah.
Oh man. All right, cool. So let's move on. Stick to the topic with John, but of course we have to talk about. I'm sorry, not John. Aegon Targaryen, Aegon the Sixth, and his big revelation that they just hastily threw in at the end with the whole thing. You know, I mean, they teased it with Gilly saying "Annulman," which is I don't know. But I don't know. There's theories out there that maybe something like this will happen in the books. I'm almost thinking that it might, because
I think
I'm remembering but I think it'll be handled way better. But I'm remembering that there's this scene at the House of the Undying in the second book where Daenerys has a vision of Rhaegar, who she thought was Viserys, but then she realizes Rhaegar, and he's with his son Aegon, and he's saying, oh, he's going to be the Prince's Promise. Now, that might be the other Aegon, but I think maybe what they're saying here is that he was mistaken. He got the wrong child, and maybe that's why they named the other child Aegon, because this one was going to be the one the Prince whose promises actually is. So I think that might be the case, but I think just the way it was thrown together here felt really dumb and really forced, like they're trying to make Jon into some kind of fairy tale hero.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of almost feel like George R. R. Martin might change anything that he had planned that has anything to do with the show, that he might run far away from it and do something completely different. But yeah, if it does happen in the books, it'll make a hell of a lot more sense, and it will be explained a lot more, that there will be time and care taken with it. Or this was just like a big crap on the screen. It was just I just didn't get it. It was just so rushed. And the only revelation we got was that he was called Aegon. Otherwise, we already know he's the son of Rhaegar. I mean, they didn't explicitly say that last season, but everybody knew it. Like, to make this into some big reveal, like, oh, he's the son of Rhaegar. Yeah, no shit. And the fact that this wedding happened, yeah, Gilly told us that on some, random, throwaway line. So we already knew that too. There was no revelation here. So the way the scene was played, like this was some big revelation, and when it's not, it's just kind of annoying.
Yeah, I think I liked watching the scene. Like, I loved seeing them get married, but the whole scene to me, it just didn't add up. Like, I don't know why they did it. The whole Aegon, like his name being Aegon, I initially took it as Rhaegar's a man of prophecy, and he always wants to push that. And I think when he finally got with Lyanna and he had a child, it's like, this is the one. I'm going to name him after Aegon the Conqueror, or the next Aegon that's going to save the world, whatever, Azor Ahai. So I think I'm fine with that. Like, whatever. His name's fucking Aegon, whatever. I just hope they don't push that on Jon. Like, I always thought Jon was the character that Jon is Jon Snow. And they foreshadowed that with Theon. Like, he's like, you're both Greyjoy, you're both Stark. And that foreshadows, I think, how Jon's going to handle it next season. I'm Targaryen, I'm a Stark. But I just don't know why it matters that his name is Aegon Targaryen. Like, they've been with Daenerys and Tyrion saying that, like, you're not fertile, you're not going to have any heirs. The Night's Watch have a certain way of electing people, and the Ironborn have another. To me, that leads to a new way of electing a leader. And I think Jon has proven that his bloodline doesn't matter. Who he is matters. He got elected to be Lord Commander because the people believed in him. He got to be King of the North because people believed in him. His name doesn't fucking matter. If he's going to lead or sit on the throne at the end of this, it doesn't matter that he's Aegon Targaryen. Because he's the one who knows the most about the White Walkers and leads everyone through the long night. But yeah, the whole scene, to me, the logic was messed up. The whole thing, like, they used Sam to help Bran. I thought that was stupid. Like, why don't you change Sam's focus? Why does Sam's focus have to be about helping Bran do his job? I think Bran's got that covered. Give Sam the job of maybe researching Valyrian steel, how it works, the properties, researching White Walkers, understanding them. Because the whole, like, they literally made a joke out of Rhaegar marrying Lyanna, and then that became a plot point that Bran magically saw. Like, you think of a guy followed, like I said it earlier, you think if a guy was following Jon because he's so important and watched him be birthed, you'd think that he'd see Lyanna and Rhaegar get fucking married. So just the whole thing was misguided. Bran thinking that she was a sand he was a sand was, it was like, what's the point? Like, why? So yeah, the whole overall point of that was to say that he is a legitimized Targaryen. And my one worry about that is that the show is called Game of Thrones. So Dan and Dave are like, oh, it's the Game of Thrones. He's the next heir to the throne. But that's not what the story's about now. The story is A Song of Ice and Fire, not Game of Thrones. It's A Song of Ice and Fire. That reveal should have been about Jon being A Song of Ice and Fire, Azor Ahai, not about him being the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne.
I totally agree with you, and that is the main issue I had with this, because this show, and I said it before, from season 2, it's been drilling into our heads. The line of succession is pointless. It doesn't matter what rights you have or claims you have to the throne, because it means nothing. And this is based off of history, where everyone's rightful heritage was just disregarded, and no one really cared about it. And that's always been the point of the show. And now, and that's why I'm saying this Return of the King theme does not fit into what the show is now. It's so out of place to say he is the hero, he is the rightful king. It's just anyway, Don, what are your thoughts on this?
So first off, on the name Aegon, look, it's either something from George, which honestly speaking, I'm like, I can't see that, because look, in the books, there's already an Aegon running around. You know, I don't think George would have the possible Blackfire Aegon running around and then Jon's real name being Aegon. That to me, it seemed like, oh, okay, well, since we took out that Aegon from the show, we can use that name again. You know, so it's either it's them trying to pull one over on the fans, or there's one of three choices. Either it's them trying to pull a fast one on the fans. It actually is going to be his name in the books, which would shock me to no end. Or they know that his real name is going to be something different, and they don't want to spoil it, you know, because maybe that is the 1 ounce of respect that they have left for the source material. So that's the only reasons why I could see his name being John. The reveal was yeah.
Oh, sorry.
The reveal was extremely clunky. I didn't think that it added anything to it to hold off this reveal from last year to this year, because again, that's something that could have been handled all in the whole flashback. We could have gotten, you know, John being born, you know, his name is Aegon, Rhaegar's his father, etc., etc. We didn't need this whole thing with Sam. Yeah, and it's just like there are more important issues, as you know, than whether or not he's, you know, legitimate or his name is Aegon. And it's just like, okay, we needed something to do. We needed, you know, while him and Danny are on the Love Boat, we need to have something that makes it seem poetic. And it's like, no, it doesn't seem poetic. It seems pathetic. So yeah man, I'm just fuck that.
Yeah, to me, this is show ruining. This is why I have no hope for season 8. Maybe I'm wrong and I'm due, because to me this is obvious, and the show has always been really clunky with its setup. And to me, this is obvious setup that the good Jon, you know, Aegon Targaryen VI is going to defeat the evil White Walkers in battle, and he'll live happily ever after with his Queen Daenerys, who love each other very much. Maybe I'm wrong. That's not the direction they're going in, but that's what it looks like to me.
It's interesting because, the whole thing with Jon and Daenerys. Fuck, I lost my train of thought. Acted, did you have something to say so I could try and collect my thoughts again? I had a really good point.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing was this is it's the Cinderella story. It's the classic. It's the poor bastard boy who can't sit at the table when the king comes into town. It's like, oh, Cinderella, the evil stepsisters treat her like shit, and it's been done with both male and female characters forever and ever, but secretly they're the prince or the princess who is destined to become king or queen and rule the lands and defeat the evil forces and marry the handsome prince or the beautiful princess, whichever way it is. And it's just really, this is what Game of Thrones is really about. The Song of Ice and Fire is not about that. It just isn't. And the fact that the Game of Thrones is simplifying the story to this is just kind of maddening.
Yeah, and a couple of quick points. First of all, I think overall my main issue with the scene is that Bran stated that he is the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. Like, that was very cut and dry, focused. That's not what it should be about. Another thing is, like, the ramifications of this going forward raised a lot of questions, because I'm like, okay, this is I guess a good thing because Jon is a legitimate heir. I guess that'll start conflict between Daenerys and Jon, but he bent the fucking knee. Like, why would they have him bend the knee? Because this would have been an amazing plot. He's not loyal to Daenerys, but they do love each other. But it just creates a conflict and a tension. I don't know. I don't know. It's tough. And I just hope the show doesn't focus in on the way it was shot. I got this immediate reaction from it, and I didn't like it. When you see him say that he's the heir to the Iron Throne, he's a Targaryen, all that stuff, he's the son of Rhaegar, They flashed to Jon knocking on Daenerys' door and going in and fucking her. Sorry, that was really vile. Sorry. But the whole point of that, to me, the show was saying it's incest. Ew, it's gross. They're cousins. Like, that was the plot point that it, to me, felt like they were focusing on, and they shouldn't have. Like, to me, that's what I got beaten over the head. Like, I feel like the casual watcher was like, oh my God, they're cousins. And it wasn't the fact that who Jon was. Like, I feel like the reveal was kind of cut short.
I actually had a different interpretation of that. I can definitely see there was that side to it, but the way I interpret that scene is when Bran was saying, "Oh, Rhaegar didn't rape and kidnap Lyanna. They loved each other. She loved him, and he loved her." And they said that right. They overlaid that voiceover with Jon and Daenerys coming in, like he loved her and she loved. So to me, it was more of it's a beautiful romance just like the other one, and that to me that was a bit more emphasized. I guess they had that incest thing to see how you.
I did get that too. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, but cool. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and move on from Daenerys and Jon Snow, and let's just
Aegon.
Yeah, sorry. I'm never gonna call him that.
I don't think they will, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but they brought it up. They're definitely gonna. I don't know, but let's go ahead and talk a bit about Cersei and Jaime. And I think their storyline is probably one of the best this season. I didn't have that issues. I mean, the issues they should have just killed Cersei, but that's not her fault. That's Daenerys' fault. Cersei was actually doing the best. She was being Cersei, and she was doing the best she could. And I like the fact that she is actually going a bit crazy. I totally bought this for her character. It made sense that once she becomes queen, she'd get mad with power, and she'd be like, Jaime, you betrayed me by going to Tyrion. That makes no fucking sense because he didn't even know he was going to see Tyrion. And as soon as he saw him, the first thing he did was go tell her about it. But of course, I love it because it shows how freaking insane that she is and how that she just doesn't get it. And she's like, oh, you betrayed me and I'm doing this. So I think her storyline played good. And I think Jaime's played out perfectly because you see at the start of the season, he has his doubts about her, but he's trying to push it aside. He's trying to be like, no, I love her. I've always loved her. We're having a child together. Everything's great. And then later, Olenna was planting the seeds, like, so she's a horrible person. She's going to bring you down. And he's saying, no, you're full of shit. But back of his mind, he knows it's true. And by the end of the season, he finally sees for himself that she wants to basically destroy the entire human race in order to hang on to her power. And so he had enough. He's like, no, fuck you then, and it goes off. So this I loved. I think this is the thing that really worked about the season.
And I would agree with that. That was probably the best part of the season. And I mean, earlier I did say Jaime was the best character because of that arc. And and I always predicted Cersei would become the Mad Queen, that she would definitely just go off the deep end. And I think that Lena Headey was brilliant in that role this year, and she definitely, I loved how she portrayed her as how crazy she really is. And but it's the stuff that kind of is around it that makes it difficult, like the Tyrion stuff I was ranting about earlier, how Tyrion, how would he believe her, and why would he even go and talk to her in the first place? So kind of the characters around them that come and interact with him, especially later in the season when Tyrion and Daenerys and them get involved, that was harder to believe. But the arc between Cersei and Jaime was good, and also I liked how Cersei had such an advantage in the early part of the season. She showed that everybody was really been underestimating her. That if Daenerys really needed to be on top of her game in order to beat Cersei and not listen to Tyrion's stupid ass plans. But I liked how from Cersei's end of things, how she was able to take advantage of Daenerys's stupid, Tyrion's stupid plans. I did like that aspect of the season too. It's just kind of all the other stuff that was sort of around it. Especially at the end of the season, which I didn't like, but Jaime and Cersei was definitely probably the best written part of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with Acton. Cersei was handled like the best that she could have, and the only issues I had with Cersei wasn't really her; it was her reacting to the weaker plot. Um, like I still don't know how I feel about the baby. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but to me, it just seemed like a blatant just throw it in there. But I do get its purpose. It made Jamie loyal. It made him stick around. But then he left at the end of the day, so I don't know why they introduced that to begin with. Maybe giving her some kind of a purpose. But yeah, I do like the callbacks. How Tywin Lannister sat her down and told her about the Iron Bank, and you see that she really took that to heart here, and she's really using the Iron Bank. And I think the way she used the Iron Bank was really smart. I don't have any issues with that whatsoever. And I really appreciated, and I didn't expect it, was that twist at the end that I honestly didn't see coming. It was when Euron said that they frightened me and he left. And I was like, fuck, this is the stupidest thing ever. I was so mad. I was like, weak writing. And then she said that he actually went to Bravos. So I appreciate her maneuvering here. And I do like a lot the way she was handled. And her and Jamie together, I did think they did a really good job at kind of splitting them up this season. So yeah, I thought it was positive overall. Yeah.
Cool. Don, any thoughts?
Jamie, and Cersei. What can I say about Jamie and Cersei that has not been said about the relationship between the United States and North Korea? It is absolutely loveless affair. They're just waiting to kill each other. And look, it's one of these things where it's touching, but it's so creepy. But then also, look, the whole thing with Cersei being pregnant, yeah, she's already been on Mad Queen status. We didn't need the possibility of her miscarrying to turn her into a Mad Queen. The whole thing with the Golden Company, like, I don't know why they decided they're going to bring in the Golden Company this late in the game. And then even the whole plan with her and Euron. See, there's one thing about that didn't make sense, right? And it's a glaring thing. And that is when Euron says, okay, I'm afraid of these things, I'm going back to the Iron Islands, but then it's a ploy. As far as we know, when they all came to the parlay, they had absolutely no idea that Jon and Daenerys were bringing that white. So what would have been, like, let's say for whatever reason, that it was just a parlay. It wasn't that they were actually bringing the white to the parlay. It was just a parlay to talk about this whole thing. How does Euron then exit otherwise? Like I've been telling people for this entire season, and maybe not so much on videos, but definitely in person, the moments that they have when you get to the actual crescendo of the moment, it's like, oh wow, that was cool. But then once you start to work backwards from it and see, like, how did they actually get there, then it all kind of falls apart. And Jamie and Cersei's arc fell apart other than Jamie deciding to leave because Cersei is, just being the worst human being that anyone could possibly be. So, again, it will be satisfying to see Jamie kill Cersei, then most likely die himself. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is too much of, okay, we want we want this thing to happen. How do we get there? And them not actually thinking it all the way through. So
Yeah, no, I'll definitely agree with that. Yeah, so if no one has anything else to say, especially Jamie, I think we can move on. Let's move on to a topic we're all dying to rant and rave about, and that's Winterfell with Sansa and Littlefinger and Arya and all that going on. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure if a lot of people would say this is the worst storyline of the season. I'm not sure. I had more of an issue with a lot of the fan service and idiocy going down south. But this was not a good storyline. I'm never going to say that anymore anyway. The resolution to this, too much of this happened off screen. Like, I will admit, I did kind of like it towards the beginning when Arya first got there and she was like fighting with Brienne, reuniting with Bran. And I sort of like seeing the siblings reunited. It started to go to shit as soon as they introduced this plan with Littlefinger trying to play the sisters against each other. Because that I just did not buy it all. Go ahead, Afkin.
I'm just nodding in agreement. I absolutely agree. It started off good. I did like the episode where the three siblings are reunited and was even with the first scene with Sansa and Arya. I didn't like the Arya coming back to Winterfell scene, how they mirrored that scene from season 1 where she got back at the King's Landing. I didn't like that, but I did like the reunion of the siblings. So I absolutely do agree with that. It just went to shit when they introduced that stupid plot about evil Littlefinger.
just the whole idea of thinking of Littlefinger. Out of everything he's done, he's a man who started the war for the Five Kings. He's a man who's like killed. He's responsible for the death of Jon Arryn, and he's prancing around Winterfell, getting these sisters mad at each other. And just the fact that how he got his comeuppance, I just didn't like it. Like, Sansa's main excuse was, this is what you do. You turn people against each other. You try to turn my sister against me, and now you have to die for it. And it just, I just felt like it fell flat. And I feel like they try to give Littlefinger that moment again of like redemption. Like, oh, look, he's clever. He can get his way out of this. But what if they flipped it? Like, instead of that stupid deleted scene of Sansa going and talking to Bran in episode 6, why doesn't Bran establish that right when he arrives? And then it's a season about Sansa manipulating Littlefinger. And we don't realize all of these manipulations until the end where she finally gets what she wants from him and then kills him. And for me, it's the same thing with Cersei. Like, it could have been switched if, instead of Tyrion coming up with the idea, what if Cersei negotiates truce and tells them that they must capture a white and then she will listen to them?
Mm.
Like, it's just flip it. Like, I wish that Sansa had her moment. And it wasn't just about her being against Arya. And I don't even know when the turning point happened. Like, to me, I just don't know how to talk about it enough, because to me, it just seemed so all over the place.
Well, according to the deleted scene, like, the turning point happened after Sansa was Littlefinger convinced Sansa to execute Arya, and then before Sansa wanted to do it, she wanted to go to Bran for a confirmation, and that's when she found out, that everything Littlefinger was off to. So off screen, even off deleted scenes, she went to Arya after she just threatened to kill her and wear her face like a psychopath and be like, "Hey, let's work together." And she's like, "Yeah."
But then she gave her the knife like they were allies. So it's like they didn't know what they were doing, and they had Arya give her the knife to hint to the audience there might be something here, even though it story-wise didn't make any sense.
Here's the thing, like, there's the theory going around that they were in it all together, that Sansa and Arya were in it all together the whole entire time. They were just playing Littlefinger. To me, like, that theory is just as bad. Like, if they would have done that, that would have been just as bad as what they did do, because they were in a private room and they were putting on, like, Sansa had tears in her eyes. They were putting on master performance. You don't have me believe that they're that good of an actress and they're putting on that good a performance when no one's freaking there to see it.
Well,
so
before the deleted scene was revealed, or maybe some people didn't know about the deleted scene, there were still people who were convinced that see, this proves it. They were planning it the whole time. Like, that was people's immediate reaction. Like, how does that make any sense? How could they be planning it the whole time? Like, who were they putting on that show for? There was no one there. Oh, there's somebody who could have been listening at the door, or peeping through a peephole. It's just so stupid. Like, I mean, it's just, to me, it was going to be problematic either way, because if they had, even if you keep that deleted scene and you're saying that, they came up with this later, then why does Sansa just suddenly forgive Arya for acting like a complete psychopath and threatening? I mean, Sansa should be really disturbed. I mean, they could work together, but she'd still be like, oh, my sister's a psychopath. I better watch myself around her. But now instead, we're best friends. We're sisters now. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So either way they did it, I would have had problems with it, whether it happened before or whether whether they've been planning it all along, or whether it happened, later, like apparently it did with the deleted scene. Either way, I have huge problems with it. It was just poorly executed all the way around. Yeah. And we should let Don, Mr. Winterfell's the worst character.
I have something to add to.
There's something real quick that I want to throw out there, is that I didn't like, the reason why I was open to the possibility that they were in it all along is because it would suck either way. It would suck if they weren't. It would suck if they weren't. So it just sucked. So I thought either way could be a possibility. But anyway, Don, please.
His least favorite
guy
part
right here. You see this guy. This guy at one point was a freaking genius. And now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, there's something missing behind me here. And that is the banner of Peter Baelish. And that's because this season, we did not see Peter Baelish. We saw some strange facsimile of what was supposed to be. This is the guy who was scheming to put himself on the Iron Throne. You cannot tell me that he did anything this season that would be considered remotely as part of a plan to get there. Nothing whatsoever. He sucked up to Bran until he found out that Bran was like, no, I'm not Lord of Winterfell. He tried sucking up to Jon and schmoozing up to him. Jon choked the shit out of him and said, don't touch my sister or I'll kill you. He tries schmoozing up to Sansa. Sansa is openly hostile to him, but then it's like, but he did save us. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, you know what? Him still being at Winterfell made absolutely no sense, because what was in it for him? How does him being at Winterfell help him get to be on the Iron Throne? It doesn't. He should have left with the Vale Army like right after Jon left. You know what? And maybe even before Jon left. Like, hey, what am I still doing here? Nothing? All right, I'm going back to my freaking impenetrable castle. And, we'll see you guys. If you need help, just call us. And then the Arya and Sansa thing. Right, so, this was probably the first season when I didn't have many issues with Sansa. I mean, obviously the whole thing of her arguing with Jon in front of the Bannermen, absolutely uncalled for, and just shows that, like I told people at the end of last season, a lot of people disagreed with me. I was like, there's going to be tension. These two are going to have some sort of, not squabble, but there's going to be an issue. A lot of people told me that I didn't know what I was talking about. And what do we get for the first 2 episodes? First 2 episodes of the season, we get tension between Jon and Sansa. But after that, she seemed pretty cool. It wasn't too big of an issue I had with her there. Now, Arya, oh God, they totally destroyed any character development for Arya. Because first they have her, she kills a phrase. Okay, people expected that. She's a little murderous psychopath. Then when she meets up with the Lannister soldiers in the Riverlands and doesn't kill them, it's like, oh, you know what? Maybe she might not be so bad. Then she goes and meets with Hot Pie, and she's super stone-faced again, acting like this wasn't her friend for the time that she was on the road. Then she meets up with Nymeria for like the most bullshit fan service possible. We didn't need her to see Nymeria. If that was what they were gonna do with it, fuck it, we didn't need that scene. You could have cut out that scene, and it adds or takes nothing away from the episode whatsoever, or the arc in general.
You know what scene they cut out? Sorry, really quick. Jon saying bye to Ghost. Just wanted to throw that in there.
I'm sorry, what's Ghost?
I just really wanted to quickly throw in. They cut a scene of Jon saying bye to Ghost.
No. What is Ghost? I'm sorry. I don't.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to throw that in because I thought that was funny.
I don't know. I'll be interested to see all these deleted scenes. Hopefully, they come out in the Blu-ray because it seems like these scenes should have been in there. So some of them, especially Jon. I mean, Jon saying goodbye to Ghost might not seem super important, but it's better than Ghost just vanishing out of like a ghost, like he's just never existed. Like poof, no more Ghost, not even mentioned. And like they should have had that scene.
No, they actually did mention him. Sansa is like, oh, do you expect all the Northern Lords to wait for Jon like Ghost does? And I'm just like, really? I'm like, you guys are total dicks for that one. But back to the Arya thing, just real quick, just to wrap it up. When she makes it back to Winterfell, and I've already touched on this before, the whole thing about her berating Sansa for wanting nice things and wanting to be the queen, and supposedly betraying the family, absolute bullshit. And then she threatens to kill her sister and impersonate her. How do you come back from that? I
took that as a bluff, personally.
No, I think that was that. I mean, because I think the writers said it. It was like, yeah, that was a real moment until
really,
yeah, that was a real thing until Sansa went to go see Bran, and like the whole thing with the giving the dagger. The way that I read that when she initially gave her the dagger was, yeah, I'm giving you this just to show you how serious it is. So either, you get your shit together, or you're going to have to try to kill me with this thing before I kill you.
Yeah, that's how I took it too. But yeah, I also wanted to talk about Littlefinger because I've heard a lot of good points about Littlefinger, about how when he was at the trial and he was called out for, accused of all these crimes, it was so completely and utterly out of character for him to get on his knees and cry.
I don't like that he did that.
Littlefinger is a master manipulator. He would have pointed out, and rightfully so, what evidence you have against me. Just the word of this crazy, creepy boy who talks about the night people were raped. That's all the evidence you have against me. And then he could have went around and he could have made up some lies, convincing lies, because that's what he does, to convince people that this wasn't the case and try to get out of it somehow. But he didn't even try to do any of that. And to me, this again speaks to the writers just wanting to get it over with. And other people accuse this as a moment of fan service, and I totally agree. I think because there's a lot of people out there who's like, oh, I hate Littlefinger. He's so scrimmy. Let's just kill him off. And they're like, okay, these fans want Littlefinger dead, so let's just kill him off, get it over with. Not have it make any sense. Let's just get it done.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I want to we keep talking about fan service and you calling this fan service. And I want to clarify, I had a couple people on my channel, but I like fan service. You know what? Fan service is fine if it still moves the story forward and is still a part of good storytelling. You can throw in a little fan service here and there if you're still telling a good story. But what they're doing is they are doing these things just because the fans want them and sacrificing good story in order to do it. I would say the Gendry thing goes into that. The Night King thing goes into that. This Littlefinger thing goes into that. I mean, it was a terrible storytelling, terrible writing.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, look, but you can tell by the reaction from a lot of the fans. It was like, oh, this is great. Oh, we've been waiting for this. This is wonderful. Like, because it was just all about the fan service and, good storytelling, good writing, anything that makes sense, be damned. Who cares if it makes sense, because the fans want it. And they did that way too often this season. And yeah, this Littlefinger thing is definitely an example of that.
Yeah, and I think that's, generally speaking, that's supposed to be what's meant by fan service. The term is supposed to mean servicing the fans at the expense of the story and at the expense of the characters, regardless of how much it fits. Oh, we just want to make the fans happy. Who cares if it makes any sense for the story?
Yeah. Like, I think if Littlefinger died, it makes sense for the story. I think the way they did it to reach that point doesn't make sense for the story. And I think it's the way the show works. Like, I honestly think the bullet points that they do is actually going to be in Game of Thrones, but it's the means of how they get there. And I think Dan and Dave don't know, like, how to kill Littlefinger, so they're like, oh, fuck, she wrote a letter. So they touch on that. Where it's like, I feel like they could have went in a totally different way. And, like, I don't like how they put the sisters against each other for such a shallow thing. Like, I would have liked it. Put the sisters together, make the wolf pack come together and defeat Littlefinger. Make everyone come together and defeat Littlefinger. But where the drama could come between the sisters is that Sansa's very protective of her family, but she's very political. Littlefinger, if he has, like what you said, Don, he could pull the army, the Vale army, and leave because he has Robin in his pocket. Well, what happens if Sansa says, I'm going to marry Robin to Arya? Do you agree to these terms? Under Arya's nose. And then you got this conflict where Arya thinks that she was betrayed, but Sansa's like, it's the best for the family. And it's just like, I just feel like there's all these cool little intricate things that they could add into the show to make it more interesting, that I just feel like it was like straight down the middle.
What's really insulting to me is that the writers actually expect us to believe and expect us to see that it's in their characters for, first of all, Arya to threaten to kill Sansa, and then Sansa to be convinced by Littlefinger that Arya should be executed. They expect us to believe that Sansa actually wants to execute her own sister, and it's just clunky. It's the clunkiest writing. If they wanted us to get to that point, they needed to do way more to get to that point, and then go from that all of a sudden to haha, we're good friends. It's just, what the fuck is this? All right, so
Yep.
I think we can start wrapping up this discussion. I wanted to get to a couple last topics real quick. Just anyone had anything to say about Theon and Euron, sort of the Ironborn storyline, because this is another thing I liked. I love the ship battle. As I said, I love what they did with Euron, and I think Afkin, you made good points earlier about how they kind of just disappeared for 3 episodes, which didn't make any sense. They were just hanging around doing nothing, and that kind of made no sense. But what we did go with them was pretty good, and I like the long-term story arc that they're setting up, because I was expecting Theon to kill Yarn by the end of the season, but they're pitching it as a long-term arc, so they're pitching it as a season 8 thing that Theon is going to go after Euron and get Yara back. And
yeah,
I liked it, and I'm interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I overall liked it too. The pacing was terrible just for the whole show, and I do feel like if they had 10 episodes, we could have gotten more Euron in there, because it just takes you out of the story when this character just disappears. He got off to such a great start. He was so awesome in the beginning, and then you don't see him for 3 episodes. So, I mean, the pacing should have been better, so you still get a little Euron in there, here and there, little Theon in there, here and there, so he doesn't disappear for three episodes. So I didn't have any huge issues with the overall story, but the way that it was paced bothered me. And I know I think me and Mark disagree on this one. I didn't really like the way it was handled at the end with it was just so cheesy, the way that like the dude kicking Theon where his balls used to be was like him eating spinach like Popeye, all of a sudden he starts beating it. Like, what the hell? I mean, that was kind of silly. I didn't I didn't care for that, and the way I did get a good laugh out of how the Ironborn, like just a few minutes ago, they were let's go rape and pillage, and then all of a sudden they're like Yara. Just like in the last season when they were at the King's Boot, where they were all like, Yara, and then 5 seconds later, you're on. Like this Ironborn could just be easily manipulated. They could just change who they're rooting for, like within 5 seconds. So I found it kind of comical, but not necessarily well done. So that was a bit disappointing to me, because I did overall think that the Theon Euron arc was decent, but I didn't really like the way that scene was handled.
Yeah, I tell you what, the Ironborn are just like Angry Mob from The Simpsons. That's the kind of like character that they have. I actually expect to see like Chief Wiggum and some people in there sometimes. Like, they're just like so fake. Like, yeah, let's kill him. No, let's do this.
Yeah, Mark, the way that you felt about the Night King taking down the wall and how it like discredited the whole season for you, I felt that the end of Theon's arc in this season ruined the whole arc of Theon this whole season. Because, like, I love the way they're handling it. The ship battle, he falls off. He's a coward. I like that. I like his whole arc. And then he finally is going to have his redemption and try and finally take his place as the next leader. And that fight is reliant on him getting kicked in the nuts and him winning the fight. Like, I think they turned it into a bad joke. Like, this guy's been tortured and tortured for seasons, and he wins because he got kicked in the dick, or the lack thereof. Like, I thought that was so weak. Like, instead of focusing on his penis, the funny, like, the obvious thing that he lost, focus on how he lost his humanity. Focus on the fact that he lost, like, he's been tortured and tortured, that being punched in the face is nothing to him. Like, he's going to keep getting up, and he beats him because he never stops. And, like, I just think the focus on him getting punched in the dick, it could have been handled way more appropriately, and it should have been done better. And in the Dragon Pit, like, Theon said something about a joke, about Euron and some kind of a joke. Like, I just feel like that storyline should have been, with Theon, it should have been more serious. And that redemption shouldn't have been focused on his dick being cut off. It should have been focused in on how hardened he's had to become because of his torture. So that pissed me off.
Theon. I actually did my video today on Theon. And look, he's a complicated character that they've turned into this one-note loser as of late. And as far as the Ironborn storyline, what Ironborn storyline? We got a fight between Euron and Yara. Yara gets captured. She gets paraded around, and then we don't see her after that. Theon jumps overboard because he got PTSD and started tweaking out. And then he comes back. And I'm like, okay, so not having male genitalia has now become a superpower all of a sudden. I just don't understand, what is supposed to be what's the deal with this Ironborn plot? Man, Dan and Dave, fuck you, man.
They turned this into a joke, and it made me mad because they punched him in the dick, and Theon just looked at him. And then he looked at him, and he punched Theon again in the dick, and he looked at Theon, and Theon looked back at him. And then he punched him again in the dick, and Theon kept staring. Like, it's like, why? Like, when was that a good idea? When was Dan and Dave like, you know what, he'll win the fight because he'll get knocked in the dick, and he won't stop, and he'll just beat him up. No, that's such a it discredits his character to no end, that they sum up his torture to a victory by him having no penis. It should have been so much more than that.
Look, I'm not going to disagree with anything you guys are saying. I think you make good points. I definitely see where you're coming from. It just personally didn't bother me as much. I liked what Alt Shift X said about this in his last video, where he talked about how his Theon is sort of a whole metaphor for like this Ironborn thing, that what is dead may never die, but come back even stronger. So it's about him sort of being beat down, and you see it in the scene. He's being beat down, but he comes back alive and stronger, and manages to win the day. So I think that's the kind of metaphor that they were going for. Whether they pulled it off in a good way as up to debate, and I definitely see what you guys are saying that they didn't. And I'm definitely not willing to give Dan and Dave any credit at the moment. So.
I just wish they made him an awkward Titan. Like, no matter how many punches this guy threw, Theon would just ignore it and just go ham. Like, he just wouldn't care. Like, I wish they played it off like that instead of the pause dick punch thing. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Cool. All right, so yeah, let's real quick. Just any thoughts on the Sam and Gilly storyline?
It makes me mad.
For a 7-episode season, this should have been at least shorter, if there at all. Like all these scenes with I like the actor that I'm blanking on his name. He played the Maester,
Jim Broadbent.
Yeah, Jim Broadbent. It was good having him along. But these scenes just seem to really drag on, especially going back and watching the season now with the knowledge of how fast these last 3 episodes went. So I'm like, why are they wasting time on this? I mean, for me, this is, if you want to do this shit, have 10 episodes in the season, God damn it. But anyway, any thoughts on the Sam and Gilly?
Yeah, and I just don't understand why we spent so much time there. What did we get out of this? What did Sam? So all this was just so that Gilly could read off some line, about Rhaegar. Like she could just rant off randomly some line in her breath about Rhaegar marrying Lyanna. Or I guess so the Jorah could be cured from grayscale, which still doesn't make sense to me. I think they should have really just killed him off, honestly. I just don't – I don't know. I don't know why. Not only did we spend too much time there, but I don't know why we needed to spend any time there. I don't know what we get out of this. I don't know what moves the story forward out of this other than, we finding out something that I don't know, could have found out in a better way with Rhaegar marrying Lyanna, and then Jorah getting cured from grayscale. So otherwise, it was way too much time for very little reward.
I just think the whole focus was off. The biggest thing he accomplished was curing Jorah of grayscale. And, I was under the impression in season 6 that he went there for Jon to help defeat the White Walkers. And he didn't bring nothing. He didn't bring anything to the table. He didn't discover anything. And he should have. Sam's an important character, and he should have had a big role to play. And he didn't.
Max, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt because you're forgetting he found out something that Stannis told him 3 seasons ago.
Yeah, fuck. That's an example of them having
Right.
nothing. Like, they don't have anything. And the characters still don't know how to make Valyrian steel. And that might be an important asset to have. Sam could have figured that out. And where's Heartsbane? He took that. He stole that. He stole the books. That's a plot point, too, that they just ignored. Why instead of him curing Jorah of a disease, of the incurable disease, why doesn't he discover how to forge Valyrian steel? Why doesn't he learn how to melt down his father's sword and produce 2 swords and maybe make a link that represents the higher mysteries that make Sam a wizard or something like that? I just feel like they're missing opportunities and they didn't focus enough on, that was another hint. Everyone was speculating about Dragonglass having healing properties, and that was like a whole thing. They didn't specifically say that in the show, and that would have been a huge, significant revelation. But they didn't push forward on it. Literally, the only thing that Sam revealed wasn't even from his own mouth. It was from Gilly saying, Rhaegar married an annulment. And that was literally how that went. And he remembered, he just remembered it. It was just so weak. And it shouldn't have been about Jon and him helping out Bran. It should have been about, first of all, him discovering about Dragonglass and Valyrian steel. And secondly, he would have been a perfect character to be proof for Bran. He's the one who would look at the history books and connect the dots to prove that Bran is correct. Bran should have said, hey, Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark got married. Jon is a Targaryen, blah, blah, blah. And Sam would have said, let me look for that. Let me look for that. It says here, based on this person, he found this. And he connects the dots and proves Bran's visions. I think it should have worked the other way around. So it's, again, reverse storytelling. I feel like they literally, I don't know. It could have been handled way better.
All right, Don, any thoughts on Sam and Gilly?
Yeah, absolute waste. I mean, Sam now remembering that Stannis told him about the dragon glass. The whole thing with him being in the Citadel for months, but it's like, oh, nobody believes me. And then the one person who does believe him is like, yeah, I believe what you're saying, but I don't care. It's bullshit anyway. Get back to weighing these internal body parts. Um, him stealing the books. Okay, so now Sam is a master thief. He can steal his father's sword. Nobody realizes that, this priceless artifact, because in the show, there are only 10 Valyrian steel swords in the entire world, which I'm like, why are there only 10? Because, 10. Yeah, so his father never comes to look for the damn sword, even though he knows his son is at the Citadel. Sam is able to cure Grayscale. He was like, "Oh, how were you able to do this remarkable feat?" Oh, I followed the instructions in the book. Really? So you're telling me all this time, all these maesters, you're not even a full-fledged maester. You've never done any kind of surgeries before, but yet Sam is able to perform this complex surgery overnight. Jorah's cured. What was the point of giving Jorah Grayscale in the first place?
Yeah, I know, it's frustrating.
And then not only that, it's like, all right, you had Sam cure him. What was the reason for Grayscale, period? Because if it isn't going to be something like I read in the book that Grayscale was the thing that stopped the White Walkers, then that was an absolute waste of a plot line. We didn't need Jorah to have Grayscale this whole time, and we didn't need Sam to cure him. Sam could have been doing some other shit that would have been more relevant to actually furthering the story and getting us to how we defeat the White Walkers or whatever the end of the story is going to be. So,
yeah,
and then the whole reveal with Prince Rhaegar. And no, man, what is that? And no, man.
Yeah, just can I make a quick point? Just talking about Sam reminds me of just how they should make a list of what their characters do, like what makes them significant. And I feel like they missed that. Like starting with Bran, he sees everything. He didn't see everything in this season. Sam, he's meant to educate and learn. The only thing he learned was from Gilly. He should have taught more. Gendry, he was just found and shipped along. He is a blacksmith. So it's like, use the characters for what they're worth. Like, why don't we have Sam learn, as he's supposed to do, about forging Valyrian steel? Why don't we have Gendry forge that Valyrian steel? Like, it's like, use the characters for what they are and don't just throw them in for the hell of it. So, just overall, it's frustrating.
And anything else you want to add, Afkin?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say I agree totally with that the characters were completely misused. Whatever talents they have, that's what they should have been doing. And absolutely, what did Sam really learn from there except for something Stannis told them 3 seasons ago? And and something that Gilly just blurted out. Like, yeah, he should have really learned something really important in those books. That's what this whole character was for. I mean, that's the whole point of him. So that's what I always assumed he would do when he went down to Old Town. And so it was a really big disappointment. And I also want to add, why did they set up this thing with Sam's brother and father being burned by Daenerys and never pay that off, where the maesters were all like, oh, ha ha ha, his parents or his dad and brother just got burned, and we're just not going to tell him.
This is the part of the plan. They're going to dedicate a 10-second scene to it in season 8.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, why did they set that up and then there's nothing? Like, I think if you're going to do that, you need to pay that off in the season somehow. Sam finding out that his brother and dad got killed and his reaction to it. Obviously, he had no love for his dad, but his brother was pretty cool to him. Even though he was way smaller and skinnier and looked completely different last season when Sam saw him, because it was a totally different actor. But his brother was always cool to him, and his brother seemed like a good guy, and he definitely is still his family, so he would definitely have some kind of reaction to it. So if you're gonna throw that out there to have the Maesters see that the Maesters have that knowledge, then you got to pay that off. Either leave that scene out entirely or pay it off, one or the other. Like why they threw that in there and then didn't follow up on it, I didn't really get that.
Well, next season it'll be, John, you can't follow Daenerys. She killed my father and my brother. You're the true heir to the Iron Throne. Your name's Aegon. Your father was Rhaegar Targaryen. I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be like the worst scene ever.
I think he might thank her for killing his father, though.
That scene is happening. That scene is happening.
Daenerys, you killed my father. Prepare to die. My name is Samuel Tarly. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Yeah, the quality of writing in the shows become. Yeah, that's probably what we'll see. God damn it. All right, cool. So I think this is a good place to end our discussion. I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with me talking about the season. So great to vent. See, look, I think I'll close by saying we all want Game of Thrones to be great, and I think that's why we're all a bit frustrated and mad, because it's not living up to the potential that it could be. And if we're totally wrong and season 8 turns out to be a masterpiece, I think no one will be more thrilled about it than us. But we're not going to pretend and close our eyes and pretend that it's great when it's not being great. So yeah, once again, thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you everyone in the chat for joining, sticking in there with us and checking this out. So just some parting words, what you guys have been up to, where they can find you. You should go subscribe to your channels if you guys haven't already. But we'll start with you, Max. What's going on with Buzztox?
Well, hey everybody. Right now, nothing. I'm here doing a live chat with Mark, Akton, and Don, and my computer broke, so I'm not going to be able to do a couple videos or some videos in the next maybe a week. But yeah, you can find me at Buzztox. There it is. And yeah, I've been working on a big video, but it's going to take a lot of time. So yeah, you can check that out in a week or so. But yeah, thanks for watching, and thanks for having me, Mark. It's been great chatting with you guys.
Sorry to hear that, Max. It always sucks when that happens.
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Don, do you want to tell us what you've been up to?
Yeah. Thanks again for having me, Mark. Akton, Max. Glad to see you guys again. Yeah. You can find me Thursdays doing Ice and Fire opinions. Today I actually did Theon. Next week, with requested by a subscriber, I'm doing Hot Pie. Other than that, I am finally going to get around to doing the episode reviews for the last 4 episodes of this season, and also the Case Against Dan and Dave Part 2. I got that coming because it is so desperately needed.
Absolutely. And Akton.
Hello, thanks again to Mark as usual, for having me, and it's good to be chatting with you guys, Max and Don, as always. And yeah, you can check me out at Akton Tamko. I still have a complete season 7 review coming out. I know I said that last time we did a discussion that is coming. I should be able to work on that this weekend, so hopefully by Monday you should have my complete Game of Thrones season 7 review. And beyond that, just keep an eye on my channel. I should have some updates coming up soon as far as what else is coming up. So just subscribe and check out all of my other Game of Thrones reviews if you haven't already. Some of the earlier ones are not negative, especially if you're not into the negativity. But yeah, check it out and subscribe if you haven't already. And I hope to see you guys soon.
Cool. And I'm, of course, Mark, Channels Enchantment of Eternity. If you're checking me out for the first time, you can check out, I've done tons of Game of Thrones stuff. I just released my full Season 7 review earlier today. Just uploaded it today. It's an hour long. So if you want to sit through an hour-long video of me, and I try not to be too yelly, but I'm very, very critical of the season. I try to be a bit more analytical in this review rather than yelly, although I think my voice does raise a couple of times because it's hard not to. But I won't be doing that much Game of Thrones stuff during the off season. I will be doing the occasional Game of Thrones thing here and there. I'm going to try to switch focus a bit more to Star Trek because Star Trek Discovery is coming out soon, so I'll be covering that and Mr. Robot Season 3 and stuff like that. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Cool. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks so much, guys, for joining us. Thanks to everyone in the chat, and we will see you later.
See ya.